What is up, everyone? I am Sophie, apparently, and holy shit. People have been speculating about when Konami was gonna drop the ban list, but I wasn't expecting it to randomly show up today, and especially not for it to be effective immediately, and especially not for it to be as absolutely wild as it is. And without further ado, I want to start talking through it, because this list is wild. First of all, and maybe most importantly, the banned cards. Only a few cards getting banned this time, but they are all very good hits. We have 3 Link monsters: Auroradon, Prank Kids Meow Meow Moo, and finally, after 10,000 years, Predaplant Verte Anaconda. And all of these, I think, are fantastic hits. Auroradon is pretty necessary, I think. Hulk Auroradon combo lines have been pretty out of control for a while, letting you set up a huge number of negates off almost no setup. Now, I do think Auroradon was not the hit here. I think biting the bullet and banning Halqifibrax would have been the better play, but if they weren't wanting to do that, I am happy to see Auroradon go. Although it does make me a little bit sad as a pure punk player, because without Halkdon, I'm not sure what that deck's doing. Either way, happy to see it gone, even if it hurt one of my favorite decks. This card is very dumb. Similarly, Meow Meow Moo, Prank Kids have been a top tier deck for a very long time now, and it's a really frustrating deck to play against. Their ability to go off with a single monster, of which they have roughly 15 copies in their deck, means it's almost impossible for them to brick, and it's also very easy for them to protect their combo and just go off into infinity. Honestly, Meow Meow Moo maybe never should have been printed, and I am very happy to see this card go. I don't want to see one of those stupid kids ever again. And finally, Verte. You know, before DPE, I was team Ban Dragoon. I thought Verte was fine. But given that Konami seems insistent on continuing to print more spells that fused from deck, and giving them strong fusion monsters to go into, yeah, this guy really can't stick around. The fact that Verte lets your opponent turn any random monsters left on board after you've stopped their combo into a big threat in the form of DPE did feel really bad, and it was pretty dumb that decks were just allowed to do that. So that's all the bans. Very good so far. I absolutely love all of them. I think they are going to do wonders for the format. The limits on this list, however, are also good, I think, but there's some wacky stuff in here. First of all, we have 3 cards that were previously unlimited moving to limited. Those are Red Rose Dragon, Shooting Riser Dragon, and Crystron Halqifibrax finding his way onto the list alongside his bro Auroradon. So, some of these are kind of weird to me. Red Rose Dragon is clearly a hit to the base deck via Rose Dragon Tenyi Adventure Synchro Pile. I'm not sure why this was the hit. I don't know much about that deck, but I don't think Red Rose Dragon number 2 was really the problem. But I'm glad to see it at least getting hit a bit. Shooting Riser, I really do not understand. This card doesn't seem like something you ever need more than one of. You can Foolish Burial a Fairy Tale Snow, which is really powerful, but in that case, I think Snow is the problem card, not Shooting Riser. I don't know why they chose to limit this card, but I think a lot of decks only play one copy anyway, so at least it shouldn't hurt any weird rogue decks that want to play it. Hulk is a fantastic hit. As I said, I would have preferred Hulk ban and Auroradon untouched, but if that wasn't going to happen, this is the next best thing. I do think Hulk limit does quite a bit. It means that if you're playing against a Halqifibrax reliant combo deck, one hand trap on the Hulk or breaking their board one time means you essentially shut them down entirely. Those decks are now entirely reliant on their one combo going through, so I think this is a pretty good hit, though I would like to see him banned in the future, and some of the cards banned because of Hulk brought back. Although, Konami was apparently willing to bring one of those cards back, even with Hulk still at 1, because Jet Synchron is here, alongside Performa Pal Monkey Board. I think both of these are fantastic limits. Jet Synchron is at 3 in Master Duel and doing absolutely nothing. I think it's pretty clearly the weakest of the tuners hit for Hulk and is going to be a huge boon to the Synchron deck. which I think is a really cool deck, and I'm glad it gets to have legs. Monkey Board also is a pretty good bring back because it gives Pendulum something to do. I do find Pendulum, personally, to be a frustrating deck that's not fun to play against, but a lot of people do like that strategy, and bringing back Monkey Board gives them a powerful tool that's unlikely to take over the meta without Electromite. That, I think, is really the type of card you want to bring back from Banned. Cards that are going to give some power to off-meta strategies without bringing those strategies to the forefront of competitive play. Stuff like Performer Pound has already been a meta deck in the past, and I don't think we need to run that back, but I am glad Pendulum players have a new toy to play with. Then, the 3 more limits, and these ones are wild. These are the absolute biggest surprises of the list, and the ones you probably know about, because all the YouTubers making bank-off reaction videos put them in the thumbnail. Out of nowhere, we have back from the banned pile, Time Seal, Change of Heart, and Yada Garasu. That's right, the longest banned card in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Has come back. Absolute end of an era. Yada Garasu was on the ban list for 18 years. And for the first time since before we knew Obama would be president, Yada Garasu is playable in Constructed. So these are some really interesting ones, and I'm not sure how I feel about them. I've seen a lot of people kind of scared of Change of Heart and how that's an incredibly powerful going second tool that can lead to giant unfun swings, and pretty much everyone agrees that Time Seal and Yada are fine to come back, because they're quite bad cards in the year 2022. And I think that's true, especially in the case of Time Seal, but in my opinion, it still was not a good idea to bring Yada Garasu back. I've been wanting to do a longer video on this for a while, and have not had a chance, but I legitimately think Yada Garasu should never be unbanned. Now, I admit this card is not very good. It is not going to affect the meta, right? You're not gonna really see it, except maybe in some jank decks at locals. And you may be wondering, well, then why do I think it shouldn't be brought back from banned, right? If I don't think it's a very good card. And my answer to that is that I don't think the purpose of the ban list is just to remove cards that are too powerful. I think the purpose of the ban list should be to make the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! More fun, either by removing cards that create unfun situations, or reintroducing cards that can allow for fun strategies once those cards are no longer too powerful to be in the game. That is the issue with Yada Garasu. Even though it is not good, this card adds nothing fun or interesting to Yu-Gi-Oh! Every game in which a Yada lock happens is just the most devastating, unfun, frustrating way to lose as the player on the receiving end. Now, if Yada Garasu was released today, I don't think it would need to be banned, right? Because it's not a powerful card, it wouldn't impact a lot of games. But I do think when it was already on the ban list, and you didn't need to change anything, you could just leave it there. Why bother bringing it back when it's not going to do anything competitively, and its only effect on the game is going to be to make a few random casual games incredibly unfun. Not super happy about that, but it's not going to be that big of a deal because it's not going to affect the meta, and I am fine with Time Seal coming back. It kinda does the same thing as Yada, but it's much harder to loop and knock your opponent out of the draw phase multiple turns, and it's much less searchable. Change of Heart is an interesting one, because this is an actual good Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. I cannot believe they brought this back. It is a little bit interesting, right? Because we already have Mind Control playable, which is similar, though quite a bit worse. We have Triple Tactics Talents playable, which is similar, but worse in some ways, better than others. We have Brain Control playable, though that one was errated because it was deemed too powerful. Change of Heart isn't doing anything you can't already do with the legal card pool currently, but it is doing that thing, sculling a monster, better than pretty much any other card. I'm confused about this one. I think it's a card that might see some play as a going second tool, but I'm not sure it's going to actually be better than Triple Tactics Talents, which has additional effects and has a utility when played on turn 1. That said, I could see this being really frustrating out of the side deck. Back when Mind Control was at 3, it was cited at 3 in a lot of decks, and it sucked to play against. And Change of Heart is just Mind Control without any restrictions whatsoever on what you can do. I'm still optimistic that this card won't be too bad. It'll be a go-second tool you'll see sometimes, but won't be overbearing or feel particularly frustrating. But I have a sinking feeling I might be proven wrong. Then we have some semi-limits, and these aren't as explosive as the limits, but there's certainly some weird stuff going on. First of all, we've got a few pretty sensible semis: Trickstar Light Stage, Wall of Revealing Light, and Dynamite Knight the True Draco Fighter, all moving from 1 copy to 2. Light Stage could have been moved to Unlimited a while ago. This card has been power crept past the point of being meta relevant a long time ago, and like I was alluding to earlier, I like when we release cards from the ban list that make odd strategies viable without making them top tier. Wall of Revealing Light is also perfectly fine. This card is a terrible star tool in this day and age that also enables some really janky combos that don't have any particular payoffs of note. This card could go to 3, no problem. Dynamite Knight is pretty whatever. I'm not super happy to see True Draco getting more power because that deck is frustrating, but I don't think the deck's very good, and it does have a unique playstyle that a lot of people like, so I do think it's fine to give them a little bit of a boon back, especially when they still don't have Masterpiece. And then we have some weird ones. Fire Formation Tenki, Cyber Angel Benten, and Pot of Desires were all limited very, very recently. Desires was even limited on the last Forbidden Unlimited list. Tenki and Ben 10 I can kind of see because they were limited to hit strategies that have now become significantly weaker, thanks to power creep in the last couple sets, and Ben 10 especially because Ava is banned, making Drytron significantly worse than they were before. But Tenki is kinda confusing. It's just a generic, really powerful card, and Tri-Brigade Branded is already a decent deck. I don't know why you felt the need to bring this back. I think both of these could have stayed limited just fine. And Desires especially, I just do not understand. I didn't understand why they limited this card last list, and I don't know why they immediately decided to bring it back to 2. I could have seen it last list as a hit to Sword Soul, but now that Sword Soul is still a top tier meta deck, why would you bring it back to 2 of all things? These are some really strange ones. I don't think any of them are egregious, right? I don't think any of these cards are gonna cause huge problems. I just don't know why we bothered. And finally, we do have 5 Unlimits, all of which I think are actually pretty sensible. We have Night Assailant, Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, Salamangreat, Mirage Stalio, and Circle, and Scapegoat. Night Assailant has been errated, literally no reason for it to be on the list now. Trishula is a bit scary because this card can do some pretty frightening hand loops, but realistically those combos take a lot of investment and aren't particularly good in 2022. Similar to Yada, I would have preferred to just leave this at 1, just because enabling that kind of hand loop strategy, even if it's not very good, doesn't create more fun game states in Yu-Gi-Oh! But whatever, Trishula's cool, we can let it back. The Salamangreat cards are perfectly fine. Salamangreat is a deck that's gotten power crept long ago. They could get all of their cards back and probably not even be a top tier deck. And Scapegoat is potentially scary because of its link spam ability, but in practice that's pretty hard to set up, and I think it's interesting when decks can enable that sort of strategy, so sure, let the goats come back. So that's all the cards, and this list is not perfect. Those cards I've certainly complained about, but overall I like it a lot. The bans are fantastic. I think a lot of the cards they moved to allow more copies of are interesting and are gonna enable some cool stuff in the game. And the odd cards they randomly brought back, even if I don't think it was a good idea to bring back some of them, are at least something interesting to experiment with, something completely unexpected. That said, my biggest complaint about this ban list, even though I like it overall, is the timing. The first national tournaments in some countries are starting this weekend, meaning players suddenly have 4 days to try to test and come up with a new deck to play, if they can even manage to get enough cards to build a new deck in that time. That, I think, is frankly pretty dumb on Konami's part. I don't see why you couldn't announce it today and just say it comes into effect in 2 weeks to let players play at their national tournaments and at YCS Hartford, without pulling the rug out from under them and forcing them all to scramble to find and buy a new deck. I guess maybe Konami wanted all of the nationals to take place in the same ban list, but in that case you could have just announced this a week or two earlier and it would have fixed a lot of the problems. That's a very strange decision, I don't like that. But overall, I think this is one of the most exciting ban lists we have had in years. It is absolutely gonna mix things up, and I am very excited to start labbing the new format and see what's gonna be good. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time.